Stomatis moratus is standing in his garden at 6 in the morning, pulling weeds between rows of tomatoes. He is 102 years old. His hands are cracked and brown from decades of Aegean sun, and he moves slowly, but he does not stop. He has no aid, no walker, no morning medication tray. He tends these plants, walks to the cafenio by 9, drinks wine with friends by noon, and sleeps every afternoon until the village wakes back up. 40 years ago, doctors in the United States told him he had 6 months to live. Terminal lung cancer. He moved home to Ikaria to save his family the cost of an American funeral. That was 1960-something. He lost track of the exact year. He also, apparently, lost track of the cancer. When someone finally asked him how he survived, he shrugged and said he guessed he just forgot to die. Now think about what your morning looked like. Maybe you woke up tired. Maybe there was a knot sitting behind your sternum before you even checked your phone. Maybe you opened a medicine cabinet and reached for something. A pill, a capsule, a gummy, just to feel even. You are not alone. Nearly 38 million American adults took prescription anxiety medication last year. Over 11% take something for depression. The global market for anti-anxiety and antidepressant drugs crossed $30 billion in 2024. $30 billion. And the numbers are still climbing. On Ikaria, 1% of the population lives past 90. That is 10 times the European average. But here is the statistic that stopped me when I first read it. When researchers from the University of Athens scored elderly Ikarians for depression using the standard geriatric depression scale, the average score was below 5, classified as very low. Comparable populations in other parts of Greece and across Western Europe routinely score above 10. The Ikarians are not just living longer. They are living calmer, steadier, more emotionally resilient lives, without the $30 billion. And at the end of this, I'm going to tell you the one daily practice these people share that no psychiatrist in America ever prescribes. It is not a food. It is not a supplement. It costs nothing. And it may be the single most powerful thing you can do for your nervous system starting today. Stay with me. You have probably heard that the answer to anxiety is managing your neurotransmitters. That sounds scientific. It sounds logical. And for millions of people stuck in a cycle of SSRIs and benzodiazepines, it has become an article of faith. But here is what that logic misses. In 2002, the National Institutes of Health ran a major clinical trial on St. John's wort, one of the most popular natural antidepressants sold in the West. The study, coordinated through the NIH National Center for Complementary and Integrative Health, found that it performed no better than a placebo for moderate major depression, no better than a sugar pill, and yet it is still sold everywhere, still recommended on wellness blogs, still sitting on pharmacy shelves next to the $40 adaptogen blends and the $90 mushroom powders. Americans spend a fortune trying to chemically engineer a feeling that an Ikarian grandmother gets from a cup of tea that costs her 15 cents. That is not a metaphor. That cup of tea is real, and it is the foundation of something much deeper than most people realize. Every morning on Ikaria, before the sun fully clears the ridge, the older women boil water in small pots and drop in a handful of dried stems. Pale yellow flowers still attached, dusty and fragrant. This is Tsaitu Vano, mountain tea. The botanical name is Sideritis scardica. It grows wild in the rocky, high-altitude soil across the island, and Ikarians have brewed it the same way for centuries. Stomatis' wife made it every morning. His mother before her did the same. It is not a trend. It is not a wellness product. It is what you drink. The preparation is almost absurdly simple. You boil about 1.5 cups of water. You snap 1 or 2 whole dried stems and drop them in. You simmer for 3 to 5 minutes. Then pull the pot off the heat and let it steep for 5 more. Strain it into a mug. If you want sweetness, stir in a teaspoon of raw thyme honey, the same honey the island's bees make from wild herbs growing in the same hills. That is it. No extract, no capsule, no standardized dose printed on a label. Just a plant and hot water, the way it has been done for longer than anyone remembers. What the plant does inside your body is where it gets remarkable. In 2018, researchers at Northumbria University in the UK ran a randomized, placebo-controlled trial with 155 participants. They gave one group 950 milligrams of Sideritis scardica extract daily for 28 days. The mountain tea group showed a significant reduction in state anxiety and a measurable increase in cerebral blood flow, more oxygen reaching the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that governs impulse control, emotional regulation, and clear thinking. The mechanism involves phenolic acids and flavonoids that act as natural monoamine reuptake inhibitors. They keep serotonin and dopamine circulating in your brain longer, gently, without the chemical hammer of a pharmaceutical SSRI. The chlorogenic acid and ferulic acid in the tea open blood vessels in the brain. Less fog, less reactive panic, more steady clarity. Then in 2024, a study published in MDPI examined 398 participants and found that regular consumption of Greek mountain tea was a significant prognostic factor for psychological resilience, and it correlated strongly with adherence to the broader Mediterranean diet. The tea was not acting in isolation. It was the daily anchor of a much larger pattern, but it explains a tremendous amount of what keeps these people emotionally stable into their 90s and beyond. About 40% of the picture. The other 60% involves two things, and the second one is the practice I promised you. Walk through any Ikarian hillside in spring, and you will see elderly women bent low with cloth bags, pulling greens from the earth. They call them horta, wild greens, dandelion, chicory, purslane, fennel, amaranth. A 2023 ethnobotanical study documented 56 different plants that Ikarians forage and eat regularly. These are not decorative salad leaves. They are dense, bitter, nutrient-loaded survival plants, the same kinds of greens that modern agriculture abandoned in favor of milder, sweeter, less nutritious cultivars. The bitterness is the point. It signals polyphenol density. These compounds reduce systemic inflammation, support gut-brain axis signaling, and lower oxidative stress on neurons. When an Ikarian woman sautés a plate of wild horta in olive oil with lemon and garlic, she is building a neurochemical environment that most Westerners try to achieve with a cabinet full of capsules. She has a pharmacy in her kitchen, not a supplement shelf. Now think about what we do in the West. We strip the active compounds out of plants, concentrate them into pills, and sell them for $30 to $60 a bottle. We skip breakfast, eat processed food for lunch, and then try to fix the neurological damage at night with a melatonin gummy and an ashwagandha capsule. An Ikarian spends maybe $2.50 a week on mountain tea. She forages her greens for free. Her honey comes from a neighbor. Her total investment in what we would call a mood stability protocol is less than what most Americans spend on a single coffee drink. Picture the American at the pharmacy counter, scanning the anxiety aisle, reading labels, comparing dosages, spending 40 minutes and $40 trying to find the right stack. Now picture the Ikarian woman sitting on her terrace with a cup of mountain tea and a plate of horta, watching the Aegean turn gold. Same goal, radically different path. But this is still not the complete picture. The tea and the greens build the chemical foundation. What closes the loop is something the researchers from the University of Athens almost left out of their data. When Dr. Christina Chrysoha's team compiled the results of the Ikaria study, 1,330 residents, published in Cardiology Research and Practice in 2011, they cataloged diet, exercise, smoking, social habits, everything. One variable did not fit neatly into any clinical category. It was not a food. It was not a supplement. It was not exercise. They almost dropped it from the analysis because it seemed too mundane to matter. They included it anyway. It explained more than any single food. Every afternoon on Ikaria, the village stops. Not slows down, stops. Between 2 and 5 in the afternoon, shops close, conversations pause, and people sleep. They call it Mesomeriano. It is not laziness. It is not optional. It is the cultural architecture of rest, built into the structure of every single day. Stamatis did this. His neighbors do this. The 90-year-olds and the 40-year-olds do this. The entire island resets its nervous system every 24 hours. The biology is direct. A daily nap of even 20 to 30 minutes triggers a hard reset of the sympathetic nervous system, the branch responsible for fight or flight. Cortisol drops. Blood pressure normalizes. The inflammatory cascade that chronic stress feeds is interrupted before it can accumulate. A landmark 2007 study from Harvard and the University of Athens found that habitual midday napping reduced coronary mortality by 37%. And in the Ikaria study, The researchers linked regular afternoon rest directly to the population's near-zero depression rates and lower cardiovascular death. It was not the most glamorous finding. It was the most important one. So here is the complete picture. Every morning, the mountain tea resets your neurochemistry. Serotonin stays active longer. Blood reaches the prefrontal cortex. Anxiety quiets before the day begins. Throughout the day, the wild greens and raw honey feed the gut-brain axis, lower inflammation, and provide a broad-spectrum foundation of micronutrients that no capsule replicates. In every afternoon, the nap, the mezzomeriano, discharges the stress your body accumulated and prevents it from compounding into the chronic, grinding pressure that drives Western rates of anxiety and depression through the roof. In the first week, you will notice something subtle. The morning feels different. Not euphoric, just quieter. The knot loosens. By the end of the first month, your appetite starts to regulate on its own. The sugar cravings that spike with cortisol begin to fade. Inflammation markers start to shift. At 90 days, ask your doctor to check 2 things: morning cortisol and high-sensitivity C-reactive protein. These are the numbers that tell you whether chronic stress is still running your biology. By 6 months, if you have held the pattern, the tea, the greens, the daily rest, you will have rebuilt the baseline. Not a quick fix, a new normal. The same populations in Okinawa and Sardinia and Nicoya converge on this identical pattern: a calming daily ritual, nutrient-dense whole plants, and structured rest. 5 places on Earth, independent of each other, arrived at the same answer. Stomatis Moretus did not beat cancer with willpower. He did not discover a miracle cure. He went home, drank his tea, ate from his garden, slept every afternoon, and let his body do what a body does when you stop poisoning it with stress and processed food and sleeplessness. He lived another 40 years. The people who stayed behind in America, on the same medications, following the same advice, many of them did not. This is not destiny. This is practice. Tonight, do one thing. Find Greek mountain tea. Look for Sideritis scardica, the whole dried stems with pale flowers, at a Mediterranean grocer or online. Boil water. Steep it for 5 minutes. Drink it without your phone in your hand. That is day 1. Every week we go this deep into one blue zone system, sourced from real research, with real protocols you can start immediately. If this is new to you, subscribe now. The next one covers a Sardinian food that rebuilds gut bacteria most Westerners have completely lost. I read every single comment. Tell me, when was the last time you sat still for 20 minutes in the middle of the day with absolutely nothing to do? Try it tomorrow. Just 20 minutes. Then come back and tell me what happened.